Well, good afternoon, viewers. Today we have a 2014 Chevy Silverado. Has some electrical gremlins. Imagine that. So I just drove it in the shop, and here's the story on this thing. It's got 136,000 kilometers. It has a history of a parasitic draw, or at least the battery going dead. He has to boost it on occasion to start it, sometimes overnight, sometimes 2 or 3 days. He also noted that occasionally the voltmeter in the dash shows low voltage, just between the 9 and the normal range there. I guess it's about 11 to 15. I see it's charging about, just according to that, about 13.5 volts. He also says that sometimes when he puts the rear defogger on, and I'm going to press it in a second, you'll see the gauges drop. So I'm leaning towards the possibility of a bad body ground. I'm pressing it now and it's turning on the rear defogger and heated mirrors, and nothing's changing as far as voltage is concerned. He said the interior lights will sometimes dim. So I wonder if the alternator could be discharging it occasionally. We're going to do a network scan of all the controllers to see if there's any fault codes before we disconnect the battery and check for a parasitic draw. So let's get started. So this vehicle should auto ID. New vehicle detected, 2014 Silverado. I just want to do a network scan to get a benchmark for where things are, in case there's any fault codes related to our problem. That might be helpful, and I don't want to disconnect the battery and inadvertently clear them. Well, it has a low voltage code in the ABS module in history, which concurs with his complaint of the battery going dead. Video display, low voltage code in the OnStar module, that's the human machine interface. High voltage code, so maybe he had a battery charger on it. HVAC module has a low voltage code. Radio has some codes, including low voltage. Both the radio and the radio controls have codes. And all the monitors have run and passed, so battery hasn't been recently disconnected. Well, while I'm in this screen, I've got a record of all these codes. I'm going to clear all the codes. It says key on, engine off, but I don't have any engine related codes, so I'm not worried about that. And we're going to set up our test equipment for a parasitic draw test. Before I disconnect the battery, I checked the alternator output. It's running at 13.8, which is a little bit on the low side. It looks fairly stable, but we're going to look at an alternator diode ripple. Occasionally we have a bad diode in an alternator that will cause a parasitic draw. Let's see what that looks like. Looks pretty clean, and I got the headlights on and the heater on medium speed. Don't have any significant ripple. So I noticed the battery has a maintainer on it, and what some people don't realize is that if you have these things hooked up all the time, they actually create a parasitic draw if they're not plugged in, because of the polarity sensing and the LED in there. We're going to check to see how much current that actually draws, but we're going to set it up for a parasitic draw test. So what I usually do when I'm doing parasitic draw testing is use a real ammeter. I use the Vantage Pro because it has a built-in ammeter. I put a disconnect switch in the negative side of the cable, between the cable and the post, as you can see here, and I've turned the switch on. So I'm going to start the vehicle now through the switch, run it, shut it off, take the keys out of the ignition. I've opened both doors and tripped the latches. I don't think this has a switch on the hood latch, but if it did, I would trip the hood latch too, so it thinks the hood is closed. And then we put the ammeter across the disconnect switch. Let's see, this would be positive and this would be negative. And we set the ammeter up to read current flow. So waited for the interior lights to shut off after I started the vehicle and shut it off, took the keys out of the ignition. And now I'm going to open the disconnect switch, which will instantly put the current through the meter. And we're over 1 amp. So let's change the resolution here. Got 4 1/4 amps. That's unusually high. That'll definitely, well, we got to give it a few minutes to time out, but 4 1/4 amps is pretty high. 4.6 amps, 4.5 amps. Let's give it a few minutes. Let's see, it's 2:09 p.m. I might plug in AC power to this meter so that it doesn't shut off. Well, that's unusual. After about, well, it's 2:20 now. I think it was 2:09. It's dropped to 0.18 or 180 milliamps. Let's change this to 500 milliamps. 145 milliamps. You've seen a spike there. Anything over 50 is cause for concern. I don't know what was on. I looked at the relay center, and the only relay that was warm, mind you, the truck had just been driven. It's just dropped down to 114. That's a module pinging the network or something. I don't have my scanner plugged in. It went back up to 220. That's interesting. But we need to wait a half an hour and let this thing time out. So it's 2:21. Let's see what happens in 15 minutes. So it's been about 3 minutes, 2-3 minutes, and it's still fluctuating between 114 and 120. It's definitely like there's a module not going to sleep, but again, we got to wait at least 30 minutes. Well, it's been 28 minutes now, and you can see that it's fluctuating between 115. I've jumped up to, it's 145, went up to 170. Sometimes it'll go up to 220. I've tested voltage drop across all of the fuses in the underhood fuse box, at least the ones that are exposed, and I can't find any problems. So I'm going to go at the driver's door now and the fuse box on the driver's side and test for voltage drops there. But that's definitely like there's a module trying to ping the network, like it's not going to sleep. And 2:37, we started at 2:09, so almost 30 minutes. Typically these go to sleep in about 15 from my experience. So you can see that it jumped up over 220 there, and now it's back down to 170. It's back up to 170. I've tested all the fuses that are accessible in the driver's side door pillar, and no voltage drops. So it's either an unfused circuit or a maxi fuse or a J-case fuse that's causing the issue. I think there's a fuse panel on the passenger side. I'm going to check. So we measured voltage drops across all the fuses that are accessible in the underhood bus center, and nothing shows up. The driver's door fuse panel, same thing. Now I can't test across the J-case fuses because they're covered. And then of course across the passenger side, same thing. The fuse panel in the passenger side. And every one shows no greater than 0.1 millivolt. And we're still fluctuating, so I might pull some of these J-case fuses I think I'm going to check for TSBs and case histories now. So I'm on Identifix looking for case histories here, and I see a number of them mention the Vehicle Communication Interface module, which is the OnStar module. I'm certain this customer doesn't have an active OnStar account. That's a fairly common cause of the problem. Check voltage at fuse 23 in the left inch per panel fuse block. Up to 0 volts. Let's check this one. Oh, this is the instrument cluster turns back on. That's not the case. I don't see anything obvious going on. Instrument panel cluster turns back on 30 seconds after the key is off. I think I had one of these where the windshield wiper motor was feeding back through the ignition switch and causing the charge indicator light to stay on with the key off and some other stuff, but I don't see any warning lights on this thing. And like I said, normally you can find it by measuring or voltage drop across fuses, but I don't see it unless I missed it, and that's possible. Battery goes dead overnight. 18 cases of the body control module. Well, I'm going to do some more research. So I removed every J case fuse under the hood and every J case fuse in both the left and right instrument panel fuse panels, and nothing changed. This truck has been sitting here for almost 2 hours. No, it was 2:09, so it's almost 2 hours. And I'm looking at this particular relay that's still hot. And now I noticed that relay was hot according to the thermal camera before. That's the one in the corner there. And I believe that's the fuel pump relay, but I mean, I just drove it in, so I assumed that would be acceptable. That is relay 12. Oh, hang on. Let me figure it out. So that's relay 59. And 59 is the fuel pump relay. So let's look at what happens when I pull that fuel pump relay out. Okay, come on, get out. Drops to 74 milliamps. It's 46, 45, 40, 42. All right, we're getting somewhere finally. Now when I plug that relay in, it actually clicks. Well, the strange thing is that fuel pump relay doesn't show in the fuel pump circuit here. This is a 5.3 L83. There's the fuel pump. It's controlled by the fuel pump driver module. And it doesn't have any, that relay's been in there forever, because it's not like somebody just installed it from what I can see. But I don't see the fuel pump relay per se. Let's get a look at the power distribution center. So I'm looking at the power distribution schematic here, and I do not even see the fuel pump relay. This is for the underhood X50A fuse block underhood busing, rear defogger, headlight, trailer park, trailer stop turn, windshield wiper, starter, trailer, windshield wiper control, engine control, fog lamp, stop lamp, horn, ignition, and AC. Yet in this picture here, that's relay 59, and on the bottom of the legend here, relay 59 is fuel pump. Yet when I go in the fuel pump circuit, I don't see that relay listed anywhere. So here in the service information, it lists that as 59, relay 59, and it's called fuel pump. Yet in the electrical diagram, I don't see it. try motor wiring diagrams. I was in the OEM. Engine, fuel controls. BCM control relay. Let me check that one, see. KR75. They don't put the number on this diagram as to what relay that is. I'm going to see if I can find that one in this power distribution center diagram. So I'm back looking at this fuel pump control circuit for this engine, and it does say power comes from the KR73 relay, which is called the ignition main relay. Now I checked pin 30 of that relay has power, and if I jump across it with a 800 milliamp test light, it doesn't light the test light, so there's no continuity to ground, but that could be the... I have a mind to just leave the relay out and try and start it and see what happens. So I've got a test light. So right now it's down to 15-20 milliamps, and then when I go across the load side of the relay with a 912 bulb, it doesn't increase the load, but that relay is being turned on as soon as I plug it in. I'm going to check it with another light bulb. So you can see with a 194 bulb plugged in there, jumps up to 290 milliamps. So that relay is turned on. I'm going to leave it out of the circuit and try and start this vehicle and see what doesn't work. Before I start this, I got to turn this disconnect switch on. That's interesting, that light got brighter. Oh no, I just had turned it off. So let's see if it'll run without that so-called fuel pump relay. Relay in there right now. I suppose if we take that test light out of the circuit, it might set a fault code for whatever this relay is. Maybe it's not supposed to have that relay in there. Somebody put one in there, but you can see the mark on the dust here. That relay's been in there for a while. It didn't just get installed recently. Interesting. So I've got that truck running with the relay out. Let's see what, if any codes it's got. And I disconnected my test light from that relay. See if there's any codes, because theoretically if that's a computer controlled relay, it should have a fault code. It's obviously not the fuel pump relay like the relay center cover says it is. So far no codes in anything. So did somebody install that relay in there and it's not supposed to have it? Interesting. No codes in any computers. And it obviously runs without that so-called relay. Go figure. It's a mystery. A lot of times these relay center covers are generic and they cover a whole bunch of different models. So sometimes, obviously there's a bunch of relays and fuses missing in here, and it just depends on what accessories it came with. I wonder if this was ever replaced before. here's another example. Relay number 66, fuel pump 2. It's located right there. It doesn't exist on this, and there's no fuses and there's no terminals in there. But 59 says fuel pump, and yet there's no fuel pump relay in there. So there's a lot of electrical accessories that don't exist on here. Like 71 is cooling fan clutch, that doesn't exist. Tons of stuff that isn't here. So I'm wondering if either this relay center has been replaced at one point and it came with this relay, this fuse in it, and it shouldn't. I'm sorry, with this relay in it and it shouldn't. But as you can see, the truck runs perfectly fine without the so-called fuel pump relay. I was surprised when I saw that relay in there because I was pretty sure they were fuel pump driver controlled. So I just got off the phone with the customer, and as far as he knows, nobody's ever replaced this relay center. He's had the truck since new, and the problem's been about a year now. He's been chasing this. I'm gonna turn the disconnect switch back off and put the current through the meter. I just shut the truck off. And we're back to about a 4 amp draw. I'm curious as to how long it takes to, 4.9 amps. It is 448. So we'll watch this and see how long it takes. So the strange thing is we have like a 5 amp draw, and it's been since 448, so that's 6 minutes, and that seems awful high to me. I don't recall seeing them draw that much for the first 6 minutes, 10 minutes. We started at 448, it's 454 now. 455, and it's like 5 amps of current draw. Oh, you know what, I got the scanner plugged in, damn it. I forgot to open the door, so the interior light was, or the retained accessory power relay was still on, so I'm going to open the latch. You got to put a tool over here to trip this. So now I got to wait for the interior lights to go out. I did have my scanner module plugged in because I did do a network scan. Going to wait for the interior lights to time out. Because I had to simulate opening the door because I took the key out of the ignition, but I had the door latches closed, so it didn't see the door open, so it kept the radio on. That's why we had that 5 amp draw. All right, I'm going to put it through the disconnect switch again. That's better. That makes sense. $590 milliamps. So let's start the timer over again. 457. So 506, it's dropped down to 25 milliamps. 16 to 25 milliamps. I did some research. So if you ID the vehicle as a 2500 with a 6-liter gas engine, it has a fuel pump relay. Now it would be nice if GM would label these with the numbers like number 59, but they don't. Fuel pump fuse 20 I wonder if it's got that. So I did some research on Google, and I found this website called Start My Car, which has fuse box diagrams. And it says the 2014 Chevy Silverado has 3 different fuse boxes. So here's the engine compartment one. And this is kind of cool, but wrong. That is not a headlamp relay. 59. Air conditioning relay. Rear defogger relay. Upfitter relay. That's the relay that's 59. It's marked headlamps, and of course it's not the headlamps because the headlights are working just fine. I actually jumped 30 to 87 and nothing appeared to come on. I put a test light across it, it wouldn't light a test light, so there's no circuit there. I'm about to take it for a road test. There's no warning lights on and everything seems to be working, but I'm going to go for a road test. Well, this has been an interesting case. I think that relay was installed by somebody, but I don't know why. I can't see anything wrong with this vehicle. I just came back from a 10-kilometer road test. Everything works fine with that relay missing. All the lights function, no fault codes. The only code I had was for the driver's door window not being calibrated after a battery disconnect, which I just did. So we'll call this one fixed. I'm going to pay attention in the next few days or few weeks. Any other 14 or 15 that I get in with for anything, I'm going to check to see if that relay is actually installed in there. I'm going to give this back to the customer. Thanks for watching.